Hello, everyone. I'm Andy, back in the United Kingdom for the month of October. And I've noticed that we are apparently streaming live as opposed to recording. So hopefully this will be available to you on the normal schedule. Otherwise, you're going to be lucky and get to listen to this live.
It is going to be on the regular schedule. Absolutely, it's just a different sort of setup in our recording platform here. So this is Scott, and I am at the moment in Toronto. I am bouncing around the continent in October. So at the moment, it's good to see you from Toronto, Andy.
Excellent. And to anyone who's listening, this is the Tea and Timbits podcast, global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. And as we are now in a new month, we have a new theme. And that theme for October is content and branding strategies. And we'll be kicking that theme off this week with mapping the buyer journey. But before we get into that, Scott, do you have a story for us?
I do. As I alluded to in the intro there, it is, and as we talked about in September, how to get ready for a trade show season. It is a month of a bit of travel and trying to get out into the market. And I just thought that I would reflect on what it sort of requires in order to get somebody to show up at an event. Mm-hmm. And the events that I've participated in this month are more of the bespoke, smaller, vendor-specific ones, not a big sort of Las Vegas trade show or anything of that nature. And so I think that the value of doing those kinds of intimate events is actually greater. You get a more captive audience, you get more meaningful conversations, you get more long-term relationship development opportunities. But I do think it comes with the challenge of needing to fill the room. And, working with one of our partners, they nailed it. It was, right away, yep, we could tell you there's going to be 100 people easily. This is who's going to be there. Most people have already signed up, kind of thing. And then our other partner is kind of been like, well, I don't know, like, I guess. And and in one case, it was very deliberate to say, like, here's who we want there. Distribute the expectation for making the invitations across the team and partners and whatnot. And in the other case, it was, well, we'll just hold an event and everybody will show up, and didn't have the same kind of emphasis and formality around filling the room. And I think it's just important to know that it's easy to make it successful. It's easy to overlook what it takes to make it successful. And a lot of times you think I just sort of schedule the date, get the big name speakers, blast out an email address, socialize it broadly, and the attendees will come. And I don't know if it's a post-COVID situation or if it is a more intimate event kind of a situation. But even when we have done our own events like this, we'll send out mass communications and whatnot. Until you make a one-on-one outreach, until you call somebody up or send them their own invitation to say, hey, we're having this event. It's going to be great for you. We'd love you to be there. Let me know if you've got any questions. You don't really get any consideration. So if you're holding an event, if you're trying to drive interest and attraction, we didn't talk about it in our last episode about sort of before, during, and after the event, but the before part requires a really intentional, deliberate outreach effort in order to get the right people in the room to make it worthwhile.
Absolutely fantastic recap from last week's episode as well, and also a very important message to anyone listening. Don't just expect people to turn up just because you're there. Have a strategy, have a plan, and make sure that it's fully implemented. And that kind of leads into this week's episode, which is all about making sure that you map the buyer journey, and that is part of it, of course. Understanding your customer's expectations ahead of a trade show, but also overall, when you're thinking about content and branding strategies, mapping the buyer journey is the first place to start, and that is why we have that as the first episode of this series. From my perspective, we see is that the most companies, they kind of produce the content first and then they sort of ask questions later. Whereas, of course, you know, the teams that have the most success, they do the complete opposite of that. They map how buyers actually make decisions. Then they place, you know, sort of the right message and the right person and all that sort of stuff at each step on that journey. And that's the key, is making sure that it is, you know, it's not just a poster on a wall in the office, you know, it's actually a revenue operating system that you have in your business and that you work around. So what was it, Scott, that you felt people should get out of this episode when you were thinking about this particular topic?
Two things. One, just the importance of thinking about the journey and not making it a tactical moment, not thinking that this is about amplitude and broadcasting your message. The second thing is understanding that the buyer journey is nonlinear. So don't sit down and draw this out and go, oh, okay, well, they told me to think about the steps and these are perfect steps, and then that's how it's going to go. So it's a non-linear process.
And of course, a big part of that is something that I know we both see a lot, and we see a lot of companies struggling with, and that is the alignment between the different departments. So I think when you're mapping this buyer journey and you're planning the content strategy, that you have that alignment between sales, between marketing, between customer success, and that you ensure that that is all part of the same playbook.
All right, trivia question for you, because I'm working in a little bit of this narrative into some of the presentations that I am doing this month. How many times do you think the buyer or the buying committee that you're selling to changes their mind or has to realign on those requirements during the buying process?
It really depends on how robust their own system is, because part of the problem is that a lot of buyers don't understand their own journey and they don't understand their own processes. So when you're creating this buyer journey, it's not just about you as a selling company. It is about educating, leading, and guiding and delivering a platform for the customers and prospects to follow on that journey. And so that will often lead to them rethinking about a number of that they're doing internally. And so very often, if you've got a 5-step process, there will be 5 points on that they will be rethinking about what they're doing, their approach, and what they're looking to get out of it.
So the research that I did, I discovered a statistic that said that buyers will revise their own understanding of their own problem an average of 3.1 times during the buying cycle. So how about that for trying to map a buying journey when the buyer's own understanding and articulation of the problem is going to change along the way? So that's getting back to the point that I started off with about this being non-linear, and you need to you could easily throw your hands up and be like, oh my god, like these processes are ridiculous, I gotta wait till they do figure it out. On the flip side, it's frustrating because they're not going to realize that or appreciate that or think that applies to them. No, that's everybody else, but we've got it sorted out, right? And so they're going to give you kind of a buying journey that they want to go on. So I think that there's three things that have to happen here. One, you do need to have your own process that you articulate so that the buyer can qualify whether or not they want to engage with you, even in the the decision making process, or whether or not they're like, no, we're pretty rigid in the way we're going to make this decision, and we need somebody who can flex to us. So two, you need to sort of be ready to you need to decide ahead of time how flexible you're going to be. And I don't think the answer is be infinitely flexible and adapt to everything that the prospect or the client wants to do. And three, you need to have some alternatives ready ahead of time. You need to anticipate a certain amount of deviation. You might not know where you're going to deviate, but you need to be ready for how to accommodate those deviations. Have some other examples. I think if you try to derail it yourself, it'll just be a freaking mess. But be ready to spot that this is a slight deviation and just handle that not as an objection, but as a deviation from where we were originally expecting to go.
Correct. And we've also got to be aware as well that very often organizations, as we said, will struggle with understanding where to go and how to move forward in the process.
Yep.
And as a result, what will often happen is that they'll give salespeople homework. And it's not necessarily a delay tactic. It is very often based on that they don't know or don't understand what's actually going on or where to go next. And so they need you. They're looking for that guidance. They're looking for that structure. And when you're in a sales process and you're following and thinking about the sales journey and the buyer and the customer content creation and everything around it, that's all part of that journey. It's so important to have that mindset of, does this move the buyer to the next decision?
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, then it's just noise.
That's right.
And so rethinking about that at every stage, and as you say, I mean, there's going to be these deviations. There's going to be these things that are going to go off the track. There's going to be things that are going to come up that you haven't thought about, you haven't experienced before, and don't exist in this buyer map that you've designed. But remembering that sort of ethos of, is this moving the buyer journey towards the next decision,
right,
is so crucial, because getting them back on track is very important as well.
Okay, so you've kind of, without labeling it or identifying it, touched on something here which I think is worth highlighting, and that is the difference between sort of the structure and the process of how we go through an engagement and a literal tactical step-by-step playbook of how this transaction is going to come to fruition. And the tactical version of like, well, we're going to do this step and then this step and then this step, it gets really you end up with more friction there when things start to not go your way. When now I have to, like, instead of showing them this demo, I have to show them that demo, and instead of using this case study or this testimonial, I have to use this one or that one. When we talk about a journey, when I talk about a journey, that's not what I mean. I'm not saying get that specific. I'm saying the first thing that we need to do is qualify for fit. The second thing we need to do is make sure that our processes are going to align. The third thing that we need to do is talk about the problem, right? So I haven't even gotten into, right? So it's and you might shift the order of those things around, and this is that nonlinear thing. It's like, let's not worry about the order in which they happen as much as making sure that we articulate to the client, hey, listen, over the course of this conversation that's going to stretch over several meetings and several weeks or months, there's 6 things that we need to make sure we address. And we like to do them in this order, but we'll take your lead, and there's some flexibility there, and you might have your own things you need to uncover or evaluate. So, just know that, we'll fit in some of the answers as we see them come up in your process, but we might ask for, one extra meeting just to make sure we fill in our process too. And it's more about the process structure than it is the step-by-step specifics of how you're going to execute a plan. So journey is broad. It's a vector. It's a trajectory. It's not a specific task-based plan.
How do you then go about mapping the buyer journey in your business?
Well, we actually use tools for this. And I may have even mentioned on the podcast before. The one that we use all the time is called UX Pressia. They have a buyer journey building tool. You just talk about sort of where there's different stages in the decision-making process. And it even helps you think about the fact that there's certain moments where the buyer might even drift away for a little while, and you need to be ready to allow for that to happen. And then you need to think about how you keep them engaged and bring them back in, or strengthen that, because that's all part of what is quote unquote a healthy journey. So there's all kinds of tools that actually do physically help you map this. And the other one is AI. So using, ChatGPT to help as a thought partner here and structure this in terms of like, this is what I do. This is the typical, ideal client for this. And then getting really specific when you're in an actual engagement. I think more and more now, it's really critical to be like, okay, I have a real opportunity. I'm going to follow my process, but now I need to really invest in applying my structure, my process to this specific opportunity, and workshop that with a peer, with AI, so that you can maximize the likelihood of success.
So there are a number of crossovers with the methodology that I use there, which is interesting. I'm very old school when it comes to these things. I'm not against technology. I love technology, and I'm surrounded by it here as we're doing this podcast. But I'm very much an in-person person and getting people in the room. And so when it comes to mapping buyer journeys, typically I like to do that in a workshop environment where we've got the head of sales, head of marketing, head of customer success, the finance, operations, or the product department, depending on the type of business, and get everyone in the room. And then we have a look at typically sort of like 5 recent wins in a particular customer segment, 5 losses as well, of course, to understand what maybe went wrong there, 5 stalled deals, and then typically 10 things that are currently ongoing.
Right.
Because then that way you've got real data to analyze, and then you can see the similarities, you can see the challenges, you can see the deviations, and you can start to then build something around that is a common customer buying map for that particular segment.
Right.
This works well because of the different inputs from the different departments, because they all have a different input, they all have a different experience, and they all have a different responsibility in that buyer journey. And so I quite like that. But of course, taking that the content from that workshop and then feeding that into an AI system that is familiar with your business and your business processes could really elevate that even further. And I think that's a really, really excellent addition. I think, a lot of people are lazy with AI or don't know a lot about it. And so, we'll just go, oh, can you map out buyer journey for this type of customer in this industry, right? And then that's completely useless. But if you've got
cool, it turns out not to be,
yeah, and if you've got good data that you're putting in there, then of course it can then really elevate that and really take it to a level beyond what any of the humans in the room could potentially have done. So I really like that extra level that you added in there.
And just to comment on what you described, I like that workshop idea and analyzing recent wins and losses and whatnot, and getting different stakeholders in the business involved and understanding what it takes to interact with a customer in the buying journey. The caveat I have there, though, is that those stakeholders inside your business will most often, in my experience, come into that with their own desired outcome. Like they own bias in terms of like, oh, well, if we could get the client to understand our payment terms right away, that would be the best thing. If we could get the client to make sure that they know that they need 3 kickoff, meetings in the first week, that would no, those are not priorities for
exactly. Yeah.
right. So it's good to do that, but just because this is one of those scenarios where you want to filter that feedback through the lens of a professional business development approach. Those are good things.
Absolutely, yeah.
But wait a minute, hold on. We're trying to also support the client's enthusiasm, momentum, challenges, and it's about them, not about us. And some bigger teams can think that way wholesomely. It's really cool when I see that happen. That's a rarity, in my opinion.
It is always a challenge in these meetings to overcome that, but making it clear that that everything that you're creating is leading to the next step. So making that clear that this is the buyer journey, it's not the seller journey that you're mapping. It's not the company journey, it's the buyer's journey. And not having finance at the table is a real problem, because then they later on have an opinion and they don't feel involved in that process, and that's of course an issue. So it is very important that they kind of co-author the business case from the business side, but they're not overall responsible for that. The marketing and the sales department are the ones behind that, and they must lead that discussion. As you say, it's down to the business development team to build the business development mapping of the customer journey. We could, again, as always, we could go much deeper on this. So if you are listening and you found this interesting and you're looking to do a buyer map for your business and your customer segments, then do get in touch to either myself or Scott or both of us by going to tandtimbits.com and reaching out to us either via LinkedIn or by email or any other method that you feel is suitable and appropriate. You can also listen to old episodes and learn lots of lovely things about how to run your business from the past year and a half that we've been doing this.
I need to interrupt you, Andy. I need to add a little something before we sign off today. Congratulations. This is our 100th episode.
Oh, wow. Oh, fantastic. Well, yes, we did very well then, getting to 100 episodes. And so if you are listening and you want to go and listen to the 99 other episodes that are all wonderful and excellent, please do. And if you want to continue to listen to our other future 100 episodes, then subscribe now and follow us on social media. Thank you very much, Scott. It's been a pleasure as always.